The content of this podcast has not been evaluated by Health Canada or the FDA. It is educational in nature and should not be taken as medical advice. Always consult a qualified medical professional to see if a diet, lifestyle change, or supplement is right for you. Any supplements mentioned are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please note that the opinions of the guests or hosts are their own and may not reflect those of Advanced Orthomolecular Research Incorporated. Welcome to Supplementing Health, a podcast presented by Advanced Orthomolecular Research. We are all about applying evidence-based and effective dietary, lifestyle, and natural health product strategies for your optimal health. In each episode, we will feature very engaging clinicians and experts from the world of functional and naturopathic medicine to help achieve our mission to empower people to live their best lives naturally. Welcome to Supplementing Health, and thank you for tuning in today. I'm excited for our conversation with Michael Riviello, co-founder of Optimize Mind Body Clinic, about various techniques to harness the mind-body connection on your health journey. Michael is a New York City native who joined the U.S. Navy in 1999, and after years of conducting helicopter search and rescue missions, deployed around the globe and dedicating his life to active duty in the military reserve and veteran education programs, he has forayed into the world of natural and alternative therapies. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys reaching out and connecting. Happy to share my story and talk about wellness and optimize and natural approaches to therapies and health and all things.
Awesome. Now, I personally find your journey very interesting. One of my favorite movies, emotion evoking thought to be in that kind of situation. And so I'd love to learn a little bit about how your time in the Navy influenced your health and wellness journey and your perspective on this natural approach.
That's a great question. I'd love to talk through that. And I will say the Guardian did do a good job of creating a lot of realities of what rescue swimmer school actually is like. The U.S. Navy and the Coast Guard are both very similar, and the Coast Guard obviously works the coast, and the U.S. Navy does search and rescue, throughout the world as they travel from continent to continent. But mainly we operate very similar. A lot of the same language, a lot of the same mottos, obviously a lot of the same gear, same helicopters. So so I thought they did actually a really good job, and I do like that movie. It was pretty cool to have a movie made about my old profession. So when it comes to like wellness and the comparison and U.S. Navy search and rescue, at the time I really wasn't into wellness. I was into physical fitness mainly because I had to maintain a certain physique. I had to participate in annual rescue swimmer evaluations. I needed to be in shape, and that was really important. But I didn't do really any recovery or anything that I would say was good for like my mind and my body. But what I would say is something that I learned in the Navy that was super powerful was like resilience, learning that mental resilience that really helped to translate into other areas of my life, and also learning discipline, something that all military members learn. And I didn't realize how powerful discipline was until later on in my life, where I learned that discipline was essentially one of the keys to happiness. And sometimes people grow up and they don't necessarily have good discipline. Maybe it's the home that they grew up in, or they didn't create it for themselves. In the US military, that's one thing they really drive into is creating healthy routines or creating routines in general. So you can actually apply that to health. I mean, everywhere you look today, in the biohacking kind of communities, you hear a lot of people talking about morning routines, evening routines, waking up and having a variety of different things that you do to get your day started right, waking up early, with the sunrise, going to bed, obviously, as the sun goes down, or, shortly after that, getting in those rhythms, kind of like our ancestors did. And a lot of, I would say, overall health and wellness is really discipline. And a lot of people who are having a lot of problems with their health, I have seen that in many cases it's a lack of discipline, with choosing the right foods, or not participating in some sort of movement or exercise regime, um, not taking care of themselves, not doing the things needed to get quality sleep, staying on the phone until midnight staring at screens, all these things that we can talk through. So I would say those are the things that really came out of my US Navy search and rescue background. When I was active duty, we had to have mental resilience because of the training. In the military, we call it embracing the suck. And it's really learning how to be okay with discomfort. And I'm so glad that I learned those skills so early in life, because it did translate to other areas of my life as I moved into the civilian sector. And then also that meant also that discipline, just learning how to create routines, learning how to stick to routines, following through on what I'm going to say, what I would think and what I would create for myself, actually following through and doing it. So those are also things that translated into my life, and I was able to apply those to essentially my personal wellness. But I didn't learn that until much later on. Those were like skills that I had that I almost forgot about, and then they kind of came back in a very big way.
I love that you brought up getting comfortable with discomfort, because I think it is a challenge for many people, unless you have been in some of those adverse kind of situations where you've been forced to deal with it. But many of us that aren't in those really challenging situations on a regular basis have to really work at learning how to find that beauty in discomfort and becoming comfortable with it and using it to our advantage. So I think that's a really awesome thing that you recognize how that's played a role in where you've come from and where you've gotten to. Now, your actual journey into the natural and integrative medicine sphere began with cervical spine issues, correct?
Yes, that was kind of the aha moment that started to get me to go down the rabbit hole of health, wellness, mind-body connection.
And so, can you share a little bit about that experience and kind of how you went through? I assume you started in kind of the conventional system and then moved your way into more of that natural sphere.
Yes, as a veteran coming off active duty, I had access to VA healthcare system. I had injuries from my military service. I didn't quite know what they were, but it was kind of really, really deliberating pain that was like in my neck. It would radiate throughout my arms. It would radiate down my back. It would come in waves where some, days it would really stop me from participating in life. And then other days it was really manageable. I was still grinding, kind of working very hard when I got out of the military. I went into a corporate role and was kind of working my way up the corporate ladder, eventually becoming a senior director of operations for the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs for a very well-known university here. So I was balancing, working hard, and on the weekends I was playing hard. But this wave of pain and numbness and muscle spasms would take over. So it's this kind of lagging thing that just wouldn't go away, wouldn't go away, wouldn't go away. It was always poking at me, until a moment where it got so bad, that things went from pain to numbness. But prior to that, I was doing all the things that are typically recommended, which is it's pharmaceuticals, lots of pharmaceuticals, from painkillers to muscle relaxers to anti-inflammatory pills to all of that. And then they would send me into these pain management clinics and they would give me these epidural shots. So I was doing those, but you can only get so many. There's a kind of a limit. And they would work very temporary. And then when everything started to become numb, that's when the doctor started to get a bit nervous. And I was going to different doctors, neurologists, and they originally thought I had multiple sclerosis because I was losing balance, I was losing strength, I had some symptoms like neuropathy and something called clonus. So my nervous system wasn't really behaving right, and my hand strength was getting so weak that even holding like a glass to take a drink, sometimes I would just lose grip and it would fall and break. And I was starting to lose my balance as well. So that was one of the scariest moments because my grandmother had multiple sclerosis. So I just thought this was genetic. I have it now, and I saw her rapid decline over the years. So I basically did everything that was necessary until they found out that actually my spinal cord was being choked and that I was essentially losing spinal fluid and I was losing kind of communication between my brain and the rest of my body. Just think of a rope kind of being squeezed. And they went in, they did kind of an emergency surgery and they removed the discs that were kind of pressed against the cord and had punctured through the sheath. And we did this reconstructive surgery, and it's called an anterior cervical. And then I started to recover from the surgery. And initially things started to get better. I started to feel better. I started to kind of get back to, exercise and all of those things months later. And I figured this neck pain was just a thing of the past. And then unfortunately, about a year later, 10 months later or so, I started to experience all the same symptoms in different parts of my back, but also my neck too. And it just seemed to be kind of working its way down my spinal cord. So naturally, the surgeon who had worked on me recommended another surgery to go through and start to fuse other areas of my spine. He did send me for a few epidural shots as well. Those were just temporary, they were not working. And I was kind of back to the same, trying to figure out what was going on. And then overall having to make a decision about another surgery. And that's when I said I had enough. I had enough and that I was not going to do the surgery. And that really started my journey to try to find some sort of other ways to deal with this, other ways to solve it. And mainly, I was only interested in finding natural solutions. And that's where it began.
Wow, talk about resilience. Like, can't imagine going through all of that and the ups and downs that you probably felt as you're dealing with, especially knowing that your grandmother had MS, so you know what would be coming if that was the case, and you're going in eyes wide open kind of thing.
Yeah, it was
Um,
scary, especially when you're waiting for the results because you have to go do the MRI. And the MRI, they determine if you have like these sheaths or something like that, these lesions, sorry, in your brain, and that's how they will tell if you have MS. So the waiting period was like 2 or 3 weeks, I forget. And it was probably the scariest 2 or 3 weeks that I've had in my life, kind of contemplating on, what the future might look like if I have to deal with this very difficult disease.
so then did you incorporate any of the mind body treatments that you use now on a regular basis as part of your way to cope with that stress?
At the time, I had no coping skills. The coping skills that I had was alcohol. I was, not very kind to myself, and that was, the big area that I was missing. So for all this time, I was really looking at my body as as a physical being. Of course, I was, looking at it very much like you would look at a car like car diagnostics. It's like, oh, this part is broken, that needs to be removed, rebuilt, and replaced. And that was my mindset towards health. And I started to change my perspective when I read a book called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno. And it was a recommendation that I got. And he started to talk about how physical pain can manifest itself in the body. Psychosomatic pain can manifest itself into the body as physical pain. And he started to talk about the regions of the brain and go into this mind-body connection and the communication between the two. And it was this big area that I was missing that I had never explored. So that was really the beginning for me to start learning about the mind and stress and accepting that I was dealing with certain types of stress like anxiety and, bouts of depression and PTSD. Those were things that I weren't even considering having an effect on my physical body. Because when you think of like that type of stress, and if you don't have a good fundamental understanding of, how these things can affect your body, I mean, just think about something as simple as the fear of flying. If you have a fear of flying and you go onto a plane and you sit down, I mean, your heart rate's elevated, your palms are sweaty, you're having a physical reaction over essentially a thought and a feeling. And we know that, and it's common sense for majority of people, but they don't realize, I didn't realize how my mindset was really creating a lot of disturbances in my body based on the way of thinking and my unhealthy routines, my unhealthy behavior, my lack of good quality sleep, my not setting boundaries with people and things and taking on too much, my over prescription of pharmaceutical use and dealing with the side effects of all of those, my not having time to myself and having routines where I'm connecting, and the most important one of all is loving yourself. This whole concept of self-love that really just sounds like a good meme, for Instagram, but it's really one of the most important things I think for all human beings is learning how to love ourselves and accept ourselves. It was all of these things that I was not even considering. So as I started to go down the rabbit hole of learning different techniques from different people and different books, I started to really explore epigenetics. I started to explore the power of the mind, the power of now, how our thoughts can, create havoc if we're thinking too far into the future and worrying or anticipating things that haven't occurred yet. We're creating a lot of unnecessary anxiety. And if we're constantly thinking about the past and revisiting things that already happened that we can't do anything necessarily about, we can put ourselves in states of depression. And really learning how to feel and accept feelings as well, which was a difficult thing for me, mainly probably from my upbringing in New York City, kind of growing up in a kind of a tough area in Queens, and then being part of the military lifestyle. And there's no room for feelings in the U.S. Navy search and rescue program. So I had to really unwrite a lot of programs and take the things that really helped me, like the discipline and the mental resilience, but leave behind some of the other walls that I had built up. And that really started to help me to feel better little by little. And then my journey took me to the Amazon jungle, and eventually I found Wim Hof method, and there was other things as well.
The brain really is a fascinating thing. Like, it's so powerful, and it's really interesting when you start diving into the research around building those new neural pathways or changing them from the negative to more of a positive outlook with like gratitude practices and regular meditation and whatnot. It's such a huge world to dive into, and it's, in my opinion, a really interesting one, um, with so many different techniques and technologies out there to help people do that nowadays. And you use a lot of those cutting edge technologies in your clinic and your treatments, correct?
Yes, we have quite a few, and we're always on the lookout for new stuff that is in alignment and supported by science. We'd like to have a nice balance between kind of science and spirituality. We believe that that's an important piece of the healing process, that we're not robots, and we don't want to just treat everything in a robotic way, that the inner work process is done. Because here's the issue that I see with a lot of gadgets, is that a lot of us are getting away from this idea of going to the doctor and saying, hey doc, I have tons of bad habits and bad practices, and I don't eat well and I don't sleep well and I stress about the smallest things, but can you fix me, please? Can you fix me? Do you have anything to fix me? You know, you're essentially going there like looking for someone else to fix you, or a thing to fix you, like a medication, right? And a lot of people are moving away from that, and what they're doing is they're using the same exact mentality with the therapies. You know, I have bad habits, I stress about everything, I don't sleep well, I have no discipline, I can't stop myself from putting, you know, the sugar in my mouth or whatever it might be. Um, but, you know, I found this really cool new gadget, and I want this gadget to, you know, rewrite the bad programs that I have, or fix my pain, or whatever it might be. So I think it's really important to um, know that the healing process always comes from within, and that a lot of these techniques and therapies will help assist in that process. They're there to assist us and guide us in some ways, you know, like the cold, like perfect example. It's a wonderful teacher. You know, it's going to help you to learn how to go within. It's going to help you to learn how to be present if you don't know how to be present. It'll make you present. It will help you to learn how to breathe, um, and accept stress and be okay with stress and find peace in the face of stress. This is where the real learning is. That's like where the power is, right there. Not necessarily that, you know, the cold water is doing all these really wonderful physiological things as well. You know, those are, to me, added benefits. But ultimately, it's the practice, the mentality, and your approach towards wellness that really goes far. But yeah, we got all kinds of cool gadgets. We have biocharger, we have cold water therapy at Optimize, we have saunas, infrared saunas, we have contrast therapy, we have something called the Pandora Star, we have a restorative sleep device called NuCalm, which really helps people to get out of the stress states and help get them into more calm brainwave states like theta and alpha, and more parasympathetic in the nervous system. We have breathwork classes, we have sound healing, we have a new PEMF technology called Pulse coming into our Phoenix location. So we have a wide variety of different things, and also red light therapy, which I'm a big fan of, and really love. And you know something, what's unique about all of these therapies, one thing they all really have in common, essentially they're all mimicking nature. So our ancestors lived in nature. They had their feet in the dirt. They had their hands in the dirt. They moved. They didn't have warm showers. You know, they did things like, you know, bathe in cold streams, and, you know, they were connected to the pulse electromagnetic fields by grounding. They, you know, were up with the sunrise, getting the red light energy into their bodies. You know, all of these things are essentially mimicking nature in this very interesting world that we live in, full of boxes and rubber-soled shoes, and you know, and Wi-Fi's, and you know, not being able to put the phone down because, you know, we're tethered to it in a weird kind of way that's so new to humanity, and it's having an effect on our nervous system. So a lot of these therapies are really just mimicking nature. I know the biocharger for sure mimics nature, and that's the beauty in our new kind of way of being in humanity, you know, present day.
Now, you mentioned the Pandora star. I saw that actually on your Instagram profile, and it kind of flashes or has that like flashes of light. What about that is supposed to help calm your nervous system?
Well, the Pandora Star is really just taking you on a journey, and they have different settings for different things. And in nature, pulsing is very common. If you ever go outside during a lightning storm, everything's always pulsing. So nature pulses, and there's something about pulsing energy that's good for us. The biocharger works the same way. It pulses energy and puts out different frequencies. The Pandora Star is really just an upgrade that we have a time period in our therapies where people kind of sit, relax for 20 minutes, and they usually use these compression boots to, move circulation, drain lymph, and they add the Pandora Star to their journey, which will help to put them in this kind of slight state of euphoria and deep relaxation. Because as the light starts to pulse through the eyelids, it's starting to have an effect on the brain waves. And if your mind is super busy and you just got done driving and traffic, and maybe you're on a phone call and a conference call on your way in, and all of the hustle and bustle of everyday life that's common today, the brain waves are typically in high beta waves, where very much of our attention is focused externally on the external world. So when you start to go inward and you use therapies like restorative sleep device, NuCalm, or Pandora Star, and they're using different technologies, a lot of them are all working on the same concepts. They're helping to relax the mind, focus your attention within, and as you start to go within, you start to go on that journey almost like you're in a daydream in a sense, and the brain waves are starting to come out of the high beta into the more alpha and theta waves, and that's when you start to feel more calm and relaxed. Heart rate starts to typically come on down as well, and then also nervous system starts to kind of dial itself more into a relaxed, restful state versus being on this kind of alert state all the time. So a lot of those technologies are working on that principle.
Awesome. And so from your time in the Amazon, were there any non-technological techniques that you brought back with you to utilize in the clinic?
In the clinic, not so much. What I learned mostly about in the Amazon was the world of plant medicine. I was super intrigued. I was watching documentaries. I had met somebody who lived in Brazil back in 2014 that was well versed in kind of ayahuasca, Kambo, plant ceremonies, different sorts of dietas. This type of snuff called rapé, all kind of things used by Native American cultures from the Amazon basin. And they were starting to kind of spread into Western culture. I had watched documentaries, read some books, and learned about these things. And I went down there really for my own self-healing, self-exploration, really to learn more about Native practices, because in our Western world, everything we learned about was all about European history, European culture. It was very much based in that. And we knew that, as an American coming to North America, that there was people here and they had their own practices, their own spirituality, their own healing modalities. And a lot of that was just kept secret. It's not something that we learn about. It's not something that we're taught. And when I moved to Arizona, coming from, the concrete jungle of New York City, the Native American spirit is very alive and well here in the Southwest, unlike it is in the Northeast, where, obviously Native American people inhabited those areas as well. So I started to become more interested in what they had to say and their approach towards wellness. And I learned about North American traditions, but then I became very fascinated with South American traditions, mainly from the different tribes of the Amazon basin. So what I really learned in the Amazon jungle was the practice of ceremony and how important ceremony is to human culture, and how we are missing ceremony in our everyday lives. So yeah, I do incorporate the music the feel, the vibes, different types of smokes, whether it be the organic jungle tobacco, soplas or smokes, or sages and Palo Santo. So I do my breath work classes in very much a ceremonial way, which is things that I learned from my experiences working with the plants, like ayahuasca, and learning about Native American traditions, both North American, Central American, and also South American lineages. So that's definitely something that I brought back for sure. And people are really fascinated about these concepts and also their approach towards wellness. So really a lot of the education that I share and learning is something that I also bring to Optimize as well.
And do you find the roots at which someone is coming from or where their triggers are for stress and that sort of thing changes which therapies work best for them? Or is it kind of what your personal preference is and any and all of them could work for anyone?
As different as we all are, and we all have different experiences throughout life, and we all have a variety of unresolved things in our life and triggers and traumas, we're all very different, but we're all very the same too. And you see trends, really. You see trends in behavior. You see, trends with, people who come in, and you can tell like how they are, their state of being, their nervous system. They're always on like super high alert all the time. You can tell that they tend to worry a lot about things they can't control. You can tell typically very early if somebody has a controlling mentality, all of these things. And then, and then you hear about their story and they're like, oh yeah, I'm fighting this autoimmune disease. And, I got diagnosed autoimmune. It's just constant. I hear autoimmune all day, every day. It's just so common, which is interesting. And you start to see trends and patterns in behavior. So I think at the end of the day, there are doctors that are specifically working with people to get people in order, which is great. We refer people out to local naturopathic doctors who will do extensive blood work, who will work with that person one-on-one to help get, certain biomarkers back into order, or really into an optimized state, really get their biomarkers in an optimized state, whether it be their hormones, whether it be their vitamin D levels, those types of things. But as a whole, we are just opening our facility to helping people change their philosophy on health, which is being more proactive instead of reactive. So, the best defense is a great offense, so just keep being offensive in the sense that you're putting in the work, you're doing the variety of therapies, you're doing the blood work every 6 months where you're checking on things and making adjustments to diet and sugar levels and all that kind of stuff. So we're helping people to change their perspective to health, and also helping them to learn that natural approaches are effective and powerful. They're not immediate. They require your participation. And that's the part that I think most people don't want. They don't want to participate in their own health. They want something else to fix them outside of themselves. This pill, this person, this conversation with their psychiatrist. No one's going to fix you except for you. So we help to create healthy routines, discipline. Obviously we sell a variety of different types of supplements that are beneficial. We know that gut health issues are a big problem in our society. So we have, gut health supplements and things that we like. We know that low vitamin D is an issue in our society, which we saw a lot throughout COVID. We know that sleep is a big problem in our society. There's a lot of people having lots of issues getting into restorative sleep stages, and they're just way too sympathetic throughout their day. and then lifestyle that's going to create a lot of different ailments. So we're more about giving people access, educating them, and then creating community, because community is a big part of health. It's important, and it's the one area I think that's not utilized, because everybody's so used to like the doctor-patient relationship, where you just go in, you have your one-on-one, and you leave, and you're not connecting with other human beings. So community is part of the 3 pillars to what we offer, and how essentially we are meeting the mission of Optimize.
Yeah, I think one positive that has come out of the pandemic over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that people are starting to think a bit more about their health, and we are seeing a bit of a shift to more of that proactive movement, actually having healthcare instead of sick care, which I think is great. Not that we are where we need to be necessarily, but it's awesome that clinics like yours are out there to help people make that shift and find the tools they need. Now, we've obviously only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more that we could go into, and even specifically the different technologies and all that they can do for you. So if listeners want to get more information about what you offer at your clinics, they can visit your website at optimize.me. And is that the best place for them to get information and get a hold of you, or would there be other ways that they should get in contact?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website, we have 2 locations here in Phoenix. Well, one in Phoenix, one in Tempe, Arizona, which they're about 20 minutes apart. So our website has a lot of resources. We have some blogs. We have a list of the different therapies and the benefits of the therapies. If they want to follow us on our journey, the best place is to follow us at optimize_me on Instagram. We're very active on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group where people post different articles and conversations around health, wellness, and natural approaches, and that's Optimize Facebook group #OMB. And if they want to follow me specifically on my journey, the easiest way to find me is through Instagram as well, and that's at Michael_the_arc, and it's just ARC. And yeah, that's it. I would say those are 3 easy ways to follow the Optimize journey, follow me, and our kind of unique approach towards health and wellness.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's really interesting how you got to where you are, and there's lots for people to take from your personal experience. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for reaching out and connecting, and I'm happy to share.
Thank you for listening to Supplementing Health. For more information about our guests, past shows, and future topics, please visit aor.ca/podcast or aor.us/podcast. Do you have a topic you want us to cover? We invite you to engage with us on social media to request a future topic, or email us at marketing@